how to be a truly valuable woman. Ladies and gentlemen, sisters and daughters, let me begin with a simple truth. You were never created to shrink yourself, to squeeze into someone else's world. You were born to rise, to take up space, to be powerful. Being a valuable woman has nothing to do with being liked by everyone. It's not about your body shape, the softness of your voice, or the way you walk into a room. No, being valuable is about how boldly and courageously you show up for yourself and for others. A valuable woman understands that her worth is not based on whether someone approves of her or not. She doesn't wait for the mirror to confirm she is beautiful. She doesn't wait for others to applaud her. She walks in, and her presence leaves a lasting imprint. The ground seems to remember her steps. Let me speak plainly. Life will not always cheer for you. There will be spaces where people try to silence your voice. Some will misread your kindness, assuming it means weakness. Others will see your confidence and label it arrogance. Let them believe what they choose, because a valuable woman doesn't need universal acceptance. She needs to remain true to herself. If you want to be valuable, then learn to stand tall, even when you're standing by yourself. Feed your mind with meaningful books, learn new skills, say no when your heart knows it's right, say yes only when it genuinely matters. Passion isn't about flawlessness, it's about living with intention. And purpose isn't only what you accomplish with your hands, it's who you become deep within your spirit. Be someone who uplifts other women. Be someone who speaks truth with gentleness and listens with sincerity. Be someone who brings calm, not just to others, but also to her own heart. And sweet girl, don't confuse noise with value. The loudest person in the room isn't always the most influential. Sometimes the strongest woman is the one who understands that her silence carries strength. Remember this, when you step outside your home, you are not merely something to be seen. You are a statement, a declaration. Declare yourself brave, declare yourself worthy, declare yourself whole. Whether or not anyone else agrees, the world will eventually rise to meet the woman who knows her worth. A woman who sees her value doesn't need someone else to reassure her that she's enough. She doesn't live for applause or admiration. She doesn't stand before the mirror hoping someone confirms her importance. Her worth isn't built on opinions. It was written deep within her being the moment she was born. And when she truly understands that, everything begins to shift. Because when a woman learns how to value herself, she becomes powerful, not in a loud or aggressive way, but in a steady, calm, confident way. She becomes unshakable, the kind of strength that doesn't need to shout but still commands attention, the kind of self-belief that doesn't need to prove itself yet earns respect wherever she goes. Too many women are taught from childhood to search outside themselves for value, to wait for someone else's approval to feel good enough, to be noticed, to be told they're acceptable, to be pleasant, be quiet, be perfect. And even when they do everything right, someone still says it's not enough, not smart enough, not thin enough, not gentle enough, not ambitious enough, or perhaps too ambitious. That's a trap. If you spend your life trying to please everyone, you will always feel exhausted. You'll never feel complete. But the valuable woman lives differently. She writes her own narrative. She wakes up each day and refuses to let the world define her. Knowing who you are is not arrogance. It's liberation. Freedom to enter a room without shrinking. Freedom to sit at the table without apologizing for occupying space. Freedom to wear what makes you feel alive. To speak your truth and live a life that feels right in your heart, even if others don't fully understand it. Real self-worth isn't loud. It doesn't always appear as bold confidence on the surface. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's reflected in how you establish boundaries, in how you guard your peace, in how you rest without feeling guilty, in how you look at yourself in the mirror, not with shame, but with compassion. You know what it took to become who you are. You remember the storms you survived, the nights you wept and still rose the next morning, the times you kept loving yourself when it would have been easier to quit. And when life tries to shake that, because it will, you don't collapse. Not because you are hard like stone, but because you have cultivated strength from within. You don't chase applause, so silence doesn't disturb you. You don't crave approval, so rejection doesn't shatter you. You've seen yourself in darkness and still chose to believe you are worthy. That is what genuine value looks like. True worth isn't about being flawless. It is about being fully present. Being present with your imperfections, your talents, your journey, and still choosing to embrace yourself. A valuable woman doesn't wait to become perfect before loving herself. She accepts herself while she evolves. That is why she shines. That is why others sense something unique when she walks into a room. She doesn't demand to be seen because she already sees herself clearly. And when a woman views herself through the lens of love and honesty, she becomes unstoppable. She becomes a reflection for others. When she claims her value, she quietly grants other women permission to claim theirs as well. This world doesn't need more women pretending to be flawless. It needs more women who are grounded, who recognize their worth, and don't feel compelled to prove anything to anyone. Because in the end, beauty fades, attention fades, accomplishments fade, but your integrity, your compassion, your bravery, those endure. That is the kind of value that never disappears. It remains in people's hearts long after you leave the space. So don't wait. Don't wait for someone to tell you that you matter. Don't wait for the award, the title, the praise, or the partner. You matter now. Tell yourself now. Accept it now. Walk in it now. Your worth was never something you had to earn. It was always yours from the start. She enters a room and doesn't scan it to see if she belongs. She doesn't question whether she's too much or not enough. She doesn't shrink so others can feel more comfortable. She has discovered the freedom of simply being herself, not who the world expects her to be, but who she truly is. And that is what makes a woman powerful. A woman who embraces her authentic self. A woman who doesn't conceal her truth. A woman who no longer apologizes for existing as she is, not because she believes she's superior, but because she's weary of pretending. Because she understands that fake love, forced smiles, and artificial confidence come at too high a cost and never last. So she chooses honesty. She chooses presence. She chooses to be genuine even when it's difficult, even when it means stepping away from people or places that once felt familiar and safe. Let's be honest. Authenticity is not always simple. People won't always appreciate it. You may be labeled difficult, too emotional, too strong, too independent, too intense. Others may misunderstand your intentions. They might question your decisions. They might suggest, directly or indirectly, that you should change to be more acceptable, that you should be quieter, softer, smaller. But the valuable woman knows better. She doesn't live to blend in, she lives to be real. A woman understands that comfort is not her ultimate goal. Integrity is. And integrity means saying no when every part of her wants to decline. It means choosing inner peace over popularity. It means recognizing that the right people will never demand that she make herself smaller. There is a profound kind of strength in a woman who can say no without guilt, who can disappoint others in order to remain honest with herself, who can sit in the midst of chaos and still hear her own inner voice. She doesn't abandon her truth to avoid disagreement. She knows that peace purchased at the expense of her truth is merely a silent conflict within, and she is done battling herself. She doesn't feel obligated to justify every choice she makes. She's finished chasing validation. Perhaps there was a season when she did, a time when she twisted herself into shapes to become what others preferred. A time when she dressed, smiled, and spoke in ways she believed would help her belong. But she has grown beyond that. Now, her return to her authentic self has become her quiet revolution. When a woman stops performing and starts truly living, she becomes magnetic. People may not fully comprehend her, but they sense something powerful in her presence. There is a rare steadiness in her energy because she is no longer waiting for permission to exist as she is. She has already claimed herself. She doesn't fear solitude the way she once did. In fact, she has discovered wisdom within it. Walking alone has revealed lessons that crowds never could. She has learned that loneliness and solitude are not identical. Loneliness is longing for others, while solitude is rediscovering yourself. And when you stop running from yourself, you begin to realize how much resilience has always lived within you. Her authenticity isn't dramatic or theatrical. She doesn't display it like a trophy. It is quieter than that. It appears in her boundaries, in her deep, unapologetic laughter, It shows in the way she speaks truthfully and stands by her words. It shines in how she accepts her imperfections and refuses to hide her scars. She understands that perfection is a trap, and she has stepped away from that illusion. She isn't afraid to cry in front of others or admit when she is mistaken. That is not weakness. It is courage wrapped in honesty, strength expressed through vulnerability, and value rooted in truth. It's real power, a power that doesn't come from pretending, but from being authentic. She isn't trying to look strong if that means hiding her softness. She understands she can hold both at the same time. She can be strong yet gentle, open yet wise, generous yet careful. She refuses to be placed inside a small box. She is a full, complex woman, and she is no longer trying to dim her light just to make others feel comfortable. She doesn't follow what is popular. She follows what feels true, her own truth. And that truth doesn't always match other people's expectations. Sometimes it means saying yes to a dream that no one else understands. Sometimes it means walking away from a relationship that appears perfect to everyone watching from the outside. Sometimes it means staying silent when the world demands an answer and speaking up when silence would have been easier. But no matter the situation, she stays close to what is real. She knows that living honestly means some people may judge her. It means being seen fully, not just the polished parts. Yet she also knows that each time she stands in her truth, she quietly gives other women permission to do the same. Every time she chooses authenticity over performance, she creates a path for someone else. And that ripple, that quiet influence becomes legacy. So she chooses to live exactly as she is. She is no longer waiting to be chosen, not waiting to be repaired, not waiting to become more or less than herself. She is enough here and now, exactly as she stands. And that more than anything else is what makes her valuable. She is done chasing perfection. That endless race where nothing feels good enough, where every victory feels fragile and every mistake feels enormous. That race exhausted her because perfection always moves further away. The more you chase perfection, the further it seems to run. The tighter you hold it, the heavier it becomes. One day, she looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized her reflection. Not because she had failed, but because she had spent too long pretending, trying to live a life that appeared flawless from the outside while feeling empty within. So she made a different decision. She chose purpose. She realized that real worth is not found in perfect moments. It lives in meaningful ones. The moments where she shows up messy but honest, tired but willing, nervous but brave. She no longer needs to be the best at everything. She simply wants to be real, useful, and present. She wants her life to matter, not because it looks impressive on a resume or shines on social media, but because it touched someone's life, even if only one person. Purpose is not loud. It does not always receive recognition. It does not always come with applause or awards. Sometimes purpose looks like being present for a friend who is hurting. It shows up in the way you listen, the way you hold space for someone, the way you bring calm into moments that feel chaotic. Purpose is quiet work, sacred work, often invisible, yet it builds a life filled with meaning. She has learned that to live with purpose, she must ask different questions. Not do I look good or will they approve of me, but does this align with who I truly am? And will this bring me closer to what actually matters? She no longer seeks praise. She seeks alignment. She doesn't chase control anymore. She searches for clarity, because clarity helps her say no with kindness and yes with confidence. The woman who lives with purpose wakes up differently. She still feels fear, but it no longer controls her. She still makes mistakes, but she is no longer defined by them. She may stumble, but she learns each time she rises again. She does not measure herself by perfection anymore. She measures herself by growth, progress, truth, and impact. And her impact is not always found in big dramatic moments. It exists in the steady love she gives, in the way she encourages others, not for attention, but because she remembers what it felt like to stand alone. She remembers being the woman who needed a kind word, the one overlooked, the one people doubted, the one others believed couldn't make it. And now that she has discovered her strength, she doesn't keep it to herself. She lifts others up. She makes space for them because she understands that real success is not rising alone. It is reaching back and bringing others forward too. She is committed to growth, not image. That means being willing to admit when she is wrong, learning new perspectives, and releasing old habits that no longer serve her. She no longer hides behind a forced smile or a perfect appearance. She understands that pretending to have everything together is not strength. Real strength lives in humility, in asking for help when necessary, in listening more than speaking, in staying open-hearted even after life tried to harden her. And now she brings peace not only to others, but to herself. That is the greatest difference. She is no longer fighting an inner battle. She does not wake up each day carrying the weight of trying to become someone she was never meant to be. She breathes more freely now, lives more openly, loves more deeply, and all because she chose to stop pretending and begin being who she truly is. She has learned that life is not about meeting everyone else's expectations, but about honoring the calling of her own soul. Each day, she chooses to listen to her inner voice, even when it feels quiet or uncertain. She knows that following her truth may sometimes be lonely, but loneliness is still better than living a lie. She has discovered that true freedom comes when she stops apologizing for who she is and fully embraces herself. She no longer fears mistakes because she understands they are part of the journey, not the end of it. Each misstep teaches her something valuable about herself and the world. She has learned to trust her path, even when it feels rough or unclear. She believes that every experience is shaping her into the woman she is meant to become. She no longer rushes through life trying to fix everything at once. She has learned patience, the calm and steady kind. Patience with herself, with others, and with the timing of her own growth. She knows that some things take time to bloom, and she is willing to wait for what truly belongs to her. Her heart remains open but protected. She gives love freely, but does not lose herself in the process. She understands that boundaries are acts of self-respect, not walls meant to push people away. She protects her energy and her peace because she knows she cannot pour from an empty cup. She has learned to say no without guilt and yes with intention. Her past no longer defines her. She has made peace with the chapters of her story that once caused pain or shame. Instead of hiding her scars, she carries them with quiet pride. Each scar tells a story of survival, strength, and growth. She understands that her wounds do not make her weak. They make her human and deeply beautiful. She is not afraid to stand alone because she knows her worth does not depend on anyone's approval. She has built a solid foundation within herself, one that cannot be easily shaken. That foundation is made of self-respect, courage, and kindness. It supports her dreams and keeps her steady through life's storms. She chooses joy even when life feels heavy. She notices beauty in small moments: a warm cup of tea, a sincere smile, a quiet sunset at the end of a long day. She understands that happiness is not a distant destination, but a daily decision. She practices gratitude even for challenges because they taught her resilience and hope. She speaks her truth with kindness and clarity. She no longer hides her thoughts or emotions to make others comfortable. She knows her voice matters and that it can create change within herself and around her. She listens deeply to others, yet she never loses connection with her own truth. She welcomes change with an open heart. She understands that growth often requires letting go of what no longer supports her. She does not fear endings because she knows they create space for new beginnings. She lives with intention, making choices that align with her values and dreams. She doesn't waste energy on things that drain her or distract her from what truly matters. She prioritizes her well-being, nurturing her mind, body, and spirit. She understands that caring for herself is one of the greatest gifts she can offer to the world. She stands as a light for others, not by trying to fix them, but by living as an example of strength, grace, and authenticity. She supports other women on their journeys because she knows that when one rises, all rise together. She builds connections rooted in respect, honesty, and compassion. She becomes a warrior of peace, choosing love over fear, kindness over judgment, and hope over despair. She knows the world needs more women like this, women who are real, brave, and compassionate, women who refuse to settle for anything less than a full, authentic life. She is still becoming. Every day is another chance to grow, to learn, to deepen her understanding of herself and others. She celebrates her progress and forgives her setbacks. She moves forward with a heart full of courage and a spirit filled with grace. This is the woman she is becoming, the woman she was always meant to be: strong, gentle, wise, and grounded. she walks her path with purpose and peace, allowing her light to shine naturally. And within that light, she finds her true home inside herself, a place that was always waiting for her. But now she moves with intention. She speaks more slowly, listens more deeply, walks more gently, yet with more purpose than ever before. She no longer rushes to keep pace with everyone around her. She is shaping a life that feels right to her heart, even if no one else fully understands it. She surrounds herself with things that calm her spirit. People who speak with kindness, not just volume. Work that inspires her, not work that drains her empty. Places that feel safe and grounded, not just polished on the surface. Because when you stop exhausting yourself trying to be perfect, you begin choosing differently. You start asking, does this truly feel right for me? And that small question, that single honest pause, can transform your entire life. Now, when failure appears, she doesn't fall apart. She doesn't drown in shame or tear herself down. She doesn't question her value. She understands it now. Failure is simply part of the path. No meaningful journey is free from obstacles. But she is no longer afraid of stumbling, because every time she falls, she rises stronger, wiser, more determined, carrying even greater courage than before. And when someone asks her what success means today, she doesn't speak about numbers, fancy titles, or perfect images. She talks about peace, about living with meaning, about waking up each morning with a sense of direction that belongs to her, not borrowed from someone else's expectations. She speaks of laughing freely without guilt, resting without shame, loving without fear, creating without asking permission, and living without constantly apologizing for who she is. She now knows that the most powerful woman isn't the one who does everything flawlessly. She is the one who lives intentionally, not to impress, not to perform, not to prove, but to build a life that genuinely matters, deeply and honestly. And she understands that is more than enough. She does not chase attention. She does not over-explain herself or strain to be noticed, because she knows something deeper, something many miss in the race to be seen. Real power doesn't shout. It enters quietly. It fills the room calmly. It lifts its head not in arrogance, but from years of standing tall when life tried to make her shrink. A truly valuable woman earns respect not by demanding it, but by living in a way that naturally invites it, through her actions, her tone, her choices, the way she walks, the way she listens, the way she creates space for others and for herself. All of it speaks long before she says a word. Her silence carries meaning. Her calm presence holds weight. She doesn't need loudness to prove strength. Her energy speaks for her. She has learned the difference between attention and influence. Anyone can capture attention with noise, drama, or chaos. But influence is different. It grows from deep roots. It is built slowly through consistency, honesty, and intention. It moves others not by force, but by steady presence. She has learned how to protect her energy. She does not react to everything. She chooses her moments carefully, knowing when to speak and when to stay quiet, not from fear, but from wisdom. She understands that not every disagreement deserves her effort. Not every insult requires a response. Not every invitation into drama deserves acceptance. Her peace is more valuable than winning an empty argument. Yet when she does speak, people listen, not because she talks often, but because her words carry substance, filled with thought, meaning, and truth. She has no interest in shallow conversations or hollow praise. Her words reflect her heart and her mind. They are measured, sincere, and clear. Even when she speaks truth, it never comes from cruelty. It comes from care. She knows how to deliver honesty without inflicting unnecessary harm. She doesn't need a grand title to feel worthy. She doesn't need a crown to feel strong. She doesn't depend on applause to feel secure. Her self-worth does not rise and fall with opinions. It is not built on compliments. It is built on character. On the nights she stood up for herself when no one else would. On the moments she chose dignity when anger seemed easier. On her decision to keep choosing herself again and again. She may not be the loudest voice in the room, but she is often the one others turn to for clarity. She may not be the center of attention, yet her presence steadies the space. When she walks in, you sense the shift. There is something grounded about her. She does not chase respect. She embodies it. But that does not mean she is rigid or cold. There is a softness within her that makes people feel at ease, a warmth, a quiet reassurance. Real strength is not about building walls. It is about knowing you do not need them. She does not pretend. She does not perform. She simply exists as she is. And in a world crowded with noise and masks, her authenticity becomes magnetic. She understands the difference between being powerful and being intimidating. Fear attempts to control. True power connects. She does not gossip. She protects. She does not dominate. She encourages. She knows the most powerful woman is not the one shouting to be noticed. It is the one walking in purpose, speaking with intention, and leaving people better than she found them. Her standards are high, but not arrogant. She is not difficult. She is discerning. Not because she believes she is superior, but because she remembers what it took to become who she is. She does not grant everyone access to her peace, her thoughts, or her heart. Not everyone belongs at her table. Not everyone deserves her energy. And that quiet boundary she draws, that is where her self-respect begins. She is not afraid of being misunderstood. She is not afraid of being still. She does not feel pressured to be loud to prove herself. She has seen how easily noise is mistaken for power, and she has chosen something greater. She does not interrupt. She observes. She does not argue just to win. She speaks to understand. In a world that often rewards shouting, her calm confidence feels revolutionary. People may not remember every sentence she speaks, but they will remember how she made them feel safe, valued, heard. That is what real value looks like. Not how many notice you, but how many are changed by your presence. So she carries herself not with ego, but with steady confidence. Not with chaos, but with depth. Not with noise, but with a quiet flame. A flame that does not scorch others or burn out quickly, but continues glowing, strong, constant, undeniable. To every woman reading these words, understand this clearly. Your worth was never tied to perfection, volume, or constant performance. It has always been about your purpose, your presence, your truth. You were never required to become someone else to be enough. You never had to accomplish everything, possess everything, or prove everything. You only needed to be real, to be thoughtful, to be honest, to be whole. Stand firm in who you are. Walk boldly toward what ignites your spirit. Let your words carry wisdom, not just sound. Let your choices reflect your deepest values. And remember, the most powerful women are not chasing approval. They are building lives rooted in meaning. They are illuminating the world around them and reminding everyone that lasting power begins within. You are not here to blend in. You are here to rise. Rise with grace, rise with purpose, rise in truth. And as you rise, you inspire others to rise too. Be the kind of woman who doesn't just shine alone. Be the kind of woman who brightens the entire space. Move with quiet confidence. Lift others as you climb. Understand that your journey is not a competition, but a calling. Build bridges instead of walls. Create spaces where others feel safe to grow, to dream, to exist as themselves. Be patient with your own growth and generous with the struggles of others. Recognize that true strength is vulnerability embraced, not toughness worn like armor. Allow yourself to rest, to recover, and within that rest, discover even deeper power. Celebrate the achievements of other women, knowing their light does not dim yours. It adds to the brilliance of something greater, a collective strength of women united by purpose and heart. Do not apologize for your ambitions or desires. Claim your space with grace and determination. Let your voice be steady and sincere, not because you must speak above others, but because your words carry value. When you stumble, rise with compassion for yourself. When doubt appears, lean into faith in your own worth. When the world attempts to shake you, stand rooted in the understanding that your value is inherent, steady, and enduring. This woman is a beacon, not because she demands attention, but because she radiates authenticity and intention in every step. She reminds the world that power is not loud or harsh. It is kind, steady, unwavering. And to every woman reading this, you are already enough as you are. You carry within you everything required to live meaningfully, to lead with love, to shine with honesty. Rise in your strength, rise in your peace, rise in your purpose, and watch how the world around you begins to rise with you.